What a day it is, guys. Gukesh has won against Magnus Carlsen in Meltwater Chess Champions Tour tournament. Amazing performance by Gukesh. Gukesh is already in a big, or you can say, in amazing form, and he is continuing his form in this game. Okay, this game was not completely on his side. Gukesh was in big trouble, but he managed to trick the world chess champion in a very complicated position. We are going to go through this game very quickly, and this is going to be a very interesting video, so stay tuned till the end and watch the thrilling match with Gukesh played, and he managed to score his first victory against the world chess champion Magnus Carlsen. So the game started with e4. Gukesh was white. Then Magnus played e6, d4, d5. This is the French defense. Knight c3, knight to f6. e5 was played. This is the advanced variation of French. Knight went back to d7 square, and now he plays f4. This type of system which you are playing, this is the classical way of playing chess, or you can say the players of past like Stenis and that kind of era player used to play like this. Okay, Magnus says like I'm going to play c5, then knight f3, just supporting the pawn on d4 square, knight c6, further attacking the pawn on d4, and now Gukesh supports the pawn on d4 with the bishop. Okay, a6 was played here, and now he calmly develops his queen to d2 square. His idea is to long castle if it's possible for him in future. So to discourage Gukesh's idea, here Magnus Carlsen played b5. He's saying like if we long castle in this position, I am ready to push my pawns forward and create some counterplay on that side. So Gukesh says I'm not going to castle on that side, I'm going to be calm and I'm just going to play d captures c5, which is a very important idea in this position. Now he captures on c5, bishop captures on c5, knight captures on c5, and after this capture he develops the bishop on d3 square. Maybe at some point castling might be played in this position. Now here Magnus Carlsen stops that idea also by playing queen to b6, because if you go for castling here by mistake, then knight will capture the bishop on d3, or oh, knight e4 is a very good idea, so that the queen will be gone in this position. No matter what happens, there is a discovered check in this position and the queen will be gone. So that's not any good idea. So queen f2, now preparing for the castle, you can say. b4 was played, the knight is under attack, so knight moves to e2 square, and now he plays a5. All sorts of ideas are there. Bishop will be coming on a6 square. Usually what happens in French defense, black's main problem is the light square bishop, because most of the pawns are on light squares, and there's always question from where should we get this bishop on c8, the light square bishop, out in the game. So here he has solved his problem by playing a5 and b4. All these moves are there. Bishop's diagonal has been opened up. Bishop is ready to come on a6 square. So lots of problems are going to be solved. Okay, here Gukesh said like I need to castle. He castles in this position. Bishop comes on a6, and now it looks that black has solved all the opening problems in this position. His position is already quite interesting. You can say knight on c6 is ready to control all the squares in the center of the board. Knight is slightly stuck here because there is a pin over here, but it is always ready to capture on d3 or maybe on coming on e4 square. And this bishop, as I mentioned earlier, it is on a good diagonal. So black's pieces are coordinated in this position. So here Gukesh said like I need to do something, I need to create some counterplay. So he sacrifices a pawn in this position. He plays f5 to create some counterplay on the f file. Okay, so here Magnus Carlsen captures on f5. The idea of f5 was not only to sacrifice the pawn, but also to get some room for the pieces. So he places the knight on f4 square, attacking the pawn on d5 square. Okay, now knight e7, a very good move, supporting the pawn on d5 as well as the pawn on f5 square. And now here he plays e6, further saying okay, I want you to capture it. If you capture the pawn on e6, then there is one interesting idea there that you can capture on e6. Queen can capture on e6, and then we'll capture on c5, and black's king is still in the center of the board. And I will prefer this position playing from white side on any given day, because if you go for castling, which will be a big mistake, because I have rook a e1 move, the queen is under attack and the knight on e7 cannot be protected. So that's out of question. So here instead of capturing on e6, Magnus Carlsen calmly plays f6 move, stopping all kinds of counterplay. Okay, now when I was streaming this game with Niklesh, we were thinking about maybe rook d1 might be a very good idea to put some pressure on d5 square, but Gukesh says like I need to do something on the c file. So in order to open the c file, which was very wise decision in the end, which turned out to be wise. Okay, so he plays rook a c1 with the idea of playing c3, and the planning is to open up the c file. Here he castles, then c3 is played. Still you cannot really capture here because there is a pin on this diagonal, so he moves away from all these things and he plays queen to d6. Now knight d3 is a very strong idea because there is no queen b6, your queen is no longer hanging, so bishop needs to do something. So bishop captures on a6, rook captures on a6. Black's pieces are quite comfortably placed in this position, I must say. He captures on b4, knight comes on e4 square, queen is under attack, queen moves to e3 square, and now he captures on b4. Now this knight on e4 is very well placed because these two pawns are supporting the knight. Further, the e6 pawn is just supported by the knight on f4, which can be kicked away by g5 move. Well, he says like the knight is being kicked away, so I need to support the pawn on e6 with something else. So he plays knight d4, further supporting the pawn on e6. Even if you play g5 in this case, well, knight will go to maybe d3 square, and still the pawn on e6 is alive, you must say. Okay, so he did not go for that thing. He captured the pawn on a2. Okay, Magnus is being a little bit greedy and he is capturing one pawn after another, but here Gukesh sets out a trap which is very interesting. So guys, pay attention to this. Okay, this is a very crucial moment of the game. He plays knight b5. The idea of knight b5 is to attack the queen on d6 square, as well as this rook might come on c7 square. And here the best move from black side was to play queen b8, attacking the knight on b5 square. You don't have any chance to play rook c7 because queen b5 will be played, which I think like is a very good option in this position. So game might continue, but here instead of queen to b8, he decided to place the queen in the center of the board by playing queen e5. And now Gukesh plays his rook on c7 square. We all know this thing that the rook on the 7th rank is always a very nice place for the rook because there are certain threats which you will be exerting against your opponent's king. And now here the best move from black side was to play knight g6, trying to exchange this knight. And even if you do anything in this position, you cannot just ignore the threat on the f4 knight. But as they say, like sometimes you take things lightly and you play some casual move, and out of the blue something comes up and you are shocked. You don't really understand how that thing happened on the board, because the position which seemed to be very great for you suddenly changes into something completely losing, and that's disaster. So that's what happened. He played rook e8, which was a very casual move, and now in this moment you can pause the video and think about it, what really happened. Here Gukesh came up with the move that is queen b6, and believe it or not, Magnus Carlsen also did not believe about this thing, that this is actually losing for black. Means Magnus Carlsen is losing because there is a very great threat is there. Let's suppose you capture the pawn on b2. Okay, then the threat is on capturing on e7. If you capture it back, then queen d8 is a check, rook must go back, and queen e8 is a check and mate. Another idea which I would like to point out in this position is that after knight to d3, okay, the queen on e5, although it is placed in the center of the board, is trapped. Queen doesn't have any squares. d6 is not there, d4 is not there, c3 is not there, f4, g3, h2, e6 pawn you cannot capture because the queen on b6 is supporting everything, and he is surrounded by his own pawns and pieces. What a pity. We always say this thing that the centralize your queen so that it can cover a maximum number of squares, but this can also be the position where queen will actually be placed in a very bad position where it is actually getting trapped. Completely shocking thing. Okay, here in this completely losing position, Magnus Carlsen decided to play knight to g5, and after that he captured the rook knight on e7. As I mentioned earlier, if you capture it back, then queen d8 check, rook to e8, and queen captures e8 is a check and mate position. So he did not do that thing. He played rook e8 and then queen c7. The idea is like, okay, rook g7 check, king here, followed by maybe you can just push the pawn and pawn will be queening. If you exchange the queens, obviously the endgame is lost because you are one piece down. He gives the one check, queen e3 check, king h1, and it's in this position Magnus Carlsen decided to resign the game because it is just lost. Because let's see if you capture the pawn, okay, just for the sake of clarity, then white has a simple idea, check here, And now a very interesting move, that is rook into h7 check. If knight captures here, then knight g6 check, king g8, and then queen f7 is actually leading to a check and mate. What a game. What a game played by Gukesh. He continues his form, and I'm really impressed. Everybody's impressed. I hope that we will be looking forward for more interesting games by Gukesh in future, and I'll be coming back very soon. Till that moment, don't forget to like this video, share this video with your friends if you like my analysis, and subscribe to my channel if you are new here. Till that moment, take care, goodbye, and love you all.